One unfortunate victim of this current housing crisis that we're in is actually going to be senior citizens. And unfortunately, this applies to senior citizens whether or not you have a mortgage, a reverse mortgage, or a paid off home, because the cost of living and the cost of housing is going up so substantially that folks on a fixed income might not be able to hang on for very much longer. And one indicator that we can look at right now that points to this is an early warning sign is how many new senior citizens are starting to take on reverse mortgages. Basically what this is, it allows senior citizens to take out what's called a reverse mortgage on their house, and all you need for this to happen is you need to be 62 years or older and live in a home that's your primary residence, and basically you'll still retain title to the property, you'll still be the owner, but instead of having a monthly mortgage payment, you'll be receiving a monthly mortgage payment from your lender. But unfortunately, even though they're paying you, you're still going to be responsible for property taxes, homeowners insurance, HOA fees, and all the basic upkeep and utility payments. So you still have the costs associated with being a homeowner, even though you have a reverse mortgage. And on top of that, you still have to come to the table with some sort of a down payment that's required by law. As you guys can see by this sign behind me, I'm over in Reynolds Park today here in Miami, and looks like they're trying to fix up this little bridge or whatever it is over here, but we can't go out there this time. Now, when you get a reverse mortgage, you're receiving these payments, but they have something in there called maturity events built in. And what these are there things like the owner of the home passing away, or if the homeowner abandons the home for 12 consecutive months and stops making payments, or if they default on property taxes, HOA fees, or insurance. Under any of these circumstances, they can require you to pay back the loan in full at any time. But the thing is, guys, this is not free money. It's not like you sign up for reverse mortgage and you're just making all this cash, okay? It does come at a cost. But there are some benefits to this, like you don't have to pay taxes on the reverse mortgage payments that you receive, and it allows you to age in place if you otherwise wouldn't be able to afford to stay in your home in case you don't want to end up in a facility. But the main reason that senior citizens get a reverse mortgage in the first place is going back to what I said at the beginning of this video, is because they need that extra money each month to survive. Their Social Security, their pension, or their 401k, whatever it is that they have, is not cutting it to keep up with the cost of everyday life, and therefore are tapping into the equity of their home to make up for it. If we go back and look at some of the history of people taking out reverse mortgages, we can see that back around 2005, between 2005 and 2011, reverse mortgages were spiking tremendously. You know, it went from people taking out, 43,000 of them a year in 2005, all the way up to 114,000 a year in 2009. We can see going up this list that it kind of slowed down for a while up until 2020 came around, the year of the pandemic, and ever since then it's been inching up. You had more and more and more from 2020 through 2022, and so far in 2023 they've only recorded about 33,000, but by the time the year is over, this number is probably going to be tremendous because they actually record this based on a fiscal year, which starts on October 1st and runs through September 30th the following year. So essentially, 2023 has just begun. We've barely made it through the first month of this fiscal year, and we already have 33,000 reverse mortgages on the books, guys. So where is this going to end up when the year is over is what you need to be asking yourself. Yesterday I was talking about how all these condo associations that have had 40 years of deferred maintenance and have no reserves are going to see their condo fees rise exponentially. And you have a lot of senior citizens that live in some of these old buildings that have been cheap, right? Because it was cheap to purchase the unit. The HOA fee has been cheap. But what's going to happen when that no longer is the case? You think they're going to be able to afford to pay triple the HOA fees? I don't think so. And that's why we're likely to see a lot of foreclosures come out of this and a lot of forced selling, people that need to put homes on the market in these old buildings and sell it to somebody else who can actually afford to pay for all these fees. And one thing that kind of backs up this claim of whatever I just said is Right now, the cost of owning a home in 2023 is about $17,500. That does not include your mortgage payment, okay? Last year, that cost was $15,400. So just in 1 year, the average cost to own a home has shot up by about $2,000 a year, and you can thank inflation for that. And more people are moving into retirement while still having a mortgage. In fact, 44% of retirement age homeowners are carrying their mortgage into retirement. And it used to be that you wanted to have your mortgage paid off before you retire. But there's a lot of obstacles to that happening in life. People get laid off, they run into health problems, they have divorces. There's all kinds of things that can happen in people's lives that prevent that from happening. And one of the biggest contributing factors to why it's so much more expensive to own a home, even if you have no mortgage, is because of property taxes and insurance, something I have been hammering here on the channel for the entire year, okay? Because this is becoming such a huge expense for everybody. They surveyed about 1,300 American households that are retired, and they said they experienced a 25% annual increase in their spending after retirement, okay? And 1 in 5 of those people said that their spending increased by over 50%, because as you go into retirement, people pay for additional things, like they have to pay for housekeeping sometimes, or laundry services, or in-home care, different things that cost more money. And a lot of people think that in retirement, your biggest expense is going to be healthcare costs, but it turns out that it's actually housing, even with no mortgage. Just when they look at home repairs, mortgages, rent, and taxes, that contributes to about 25% of the increase in cost of living for the average retiree. And when they look at healthcare, that only makes up about 5% of their increase in cost of living. So the lion's share is going to the house. So I think when you look at these things happening, it's going to get to a point where it's going to end up pricing out a lot of senior citizens from their own home. And I'm not saying this is a good thing, I'm just saying that this is what's likely to happen as things continue to get more expensive, because none of this stuff is getting any cheaper, guys. Like, yeah, sometimes people send me, little stories or showing me things where their property tax bill actually went down, but count how many times it's gone down in the last 10 years versus how many times it's gone up, is basically my point. Can it go down? Sure. Will it likely go down? Probably not. And so it looks like gone are the days where you can just go into retirement with a small pension or just your Social Security and a decent 401k and have a paid off house and live happily ever after. It looks like those days are coming to an end already right now. So if you're somebody my age wanting to move into retirement with this mentality, you better be way more prepared than somebody that is retired already right now that's facing these troubles, because I'm telling you right now, guys, that this is not something that's probably going to get any better as the years go by. And I think it's going to put many people in the position where they can't retire at all, or you can retire so late in life it almost doesn't even make any sense anymore. If you can't stop working until you're 80 years old, how much life do you really have left to live and enjoy before it's all done? And a lot of this is due to inflation as well, and I have a little story here about that. There was a new paper that came out from the Fed, and they determined that inflation imposes long-term costs on society and the economy by forcing consumers to invest less, negotiate wages more frequently, and they have to devote time and energy to rapidly rising prices of everything. And so this is a huge weight on the economy. So the first problem with it is you got reduced wealth over the long term, because when people have to deal with higher prices like they do right now, people keep less money in the stock market or their mutual fund, and it chips away at their wealth and forces them to devote time and effort to figuring out how much cash to hold. And that could be used elsewhere. It could be kept invested and kept earning a higher annual return, but no, we need to have this money on hand because we don't know what things are going to cost next year. The next thing it does is it creates sticky wages and taxes. As prices rise, employees are typically forced to ask for raises, but some workplaces might discourage staffers from asking for more money, causing them to lose purchasing power. And this can have ripple effects on the economy, like when people buy fewer goods and services, the retailers of those goods and services also cut their spending, which ultimately translates to layoffs, and it's a spiral effect from there. The less people spend, the more business suffers, and the more businesses that suffer, the more people that lose their jobs, and the more people that lose their jobs, the less they can spend. And as you can see, that's a pretty bad spiral to be in. And they're saying that inflation can even increase capital gain costs because investors can incur a higher tax bill through inflation-adjusted value of the stock, even though the inflation-adjusted value of the stock hasn't changed. That could cause people to change their investments, creating more market distortions, as if we don't already have enough already. And then the other problem with inflation, which is what we're seeing right now play out in the commercial real estate sector especially, is interest rates might not keep up with the pace of inflation. So if a lender gives out a loan at a 5% interest rate, essentially ends up losing money if inflation is running at 10%. And what this does is it causes lenders to scale back on lending, and that creates additional cost on society in the form of dried up credit and higher interest rates that the lender will be charging for future loans. Then they go on to talk about how it affects stocks and real estate, okay? During high inflation, real estate typically rises in value, which is what we saw, but stocks may decline or stay flat because higher costs trim companies' profits. That's also not the case right now. We have seen the stock market absolutely balloon along with real estate. And that could cause investors to shift more money from stocks to real estate, further increasing companies' costs of raising capital and sparking additional price increases. What's more, businesses with less cash may invest less in research and development, hurting productivity or output per worker and lowering wages. So you can see inflation does a tremendous amount of damage to the economy that we haven't even begun to realize yet throughout this cycle that we're in right now. Check this out, guys. Brand new rental building. You see that? For rent now. This entire place is nothing but apartment rentals. I don't know how much they're charging. You can check the website out right over there, but it's probably a lot. Since coming back here to Miami, it's just been insane, you know, driving around and getting through traffic, already seeing so many accidents and things like that. And, you know, it's like sweltering hot out here today. All I can say is I miss California. People like to complain about the traffic in California, but if you're in spots like I was in, traffic is hardly existent, and the weather is so much cooler. Looking forward to my return back there at some point. Now, I'm always sharing with you guys these updates I get from Fairway Mortgage that are basically trying to FOMO people into the real estate market, even with these high prices and interest rates. And for once today, they actually sent out a helpful piece that can give you some information people actually need right now. So take a look at this. It says tip of the week. Understanding condo financing options will help you separate yourself as a buyer's and listing agent. This is mainly geared towards realtors. When listing a condo or showing your buyer a condo, you should make sure you get the budget, meeting minutes, any information about current or future special assessments, etc., reviewed by your lender upfront to avoid financing contract cancellations. And then they give a link to this flyer that they have that shows all the questions that they might ask, actually just a handful of them, because condo questionnaires can be like 30 to 50 questions long. But then they give you this sheet of some of the questions that are on those questionnaires. And it's important for you as the buyer to understand these things as well, not just the realtor, to know if you're going to be affected by this. So some of the main things that can really kill the deal when you want to buy a condo, and not just a condo, guys, this also applies to a townhome that has an HOA as well. The big one is the association subject to any pending litigation? And doesn't necessarily disqualify them automatically if they have pending litigation, but it's definitely going to make it harder to get a loan, because I have seen this happen in my own experience, where a lot of times the lender will pull out of the deal if there is pending litigation, and if they don't, they're usually going to charge the buyer a higher interest rate and might require a higher down payment. The next one is, does one single person or entity own 20% of the units in the condo association? association? And if the answer is yes, usually that will kill the deal. How many units are in the projects? How many of those are 60 days or more past due on their association fees? That can also kill the deal, because if you have a lot of people delinquent on their association fees, then most lenders are not going to want to take that risk, because there's probably something very crazy going on there. And in fact, I saw a building like this in California when I was out there. There was like 40 units there, and I kid you not, guys, 30 out of the 40 units were 60 days or more behind on paying their HOA fees. How do they sell those units? Who's buying that? Are people paying attention to this? And this is the big one that we've been talking about for a while here. Does the association have at least 10% of their yearly budget going to reserve or future repairs? Because this is going to be a requirement starting in 2025, but even though it's not a requirement right now, it can also either kill the deal or put the lender in a position where they have to charge the buyer more interest and give them a higher down payment requirement in order to move forward with that deal. The next one is, are short-term rentals allowed? If so, we cannot obtain conventional financing on a condo building that allows short-term rentals. Now, you can still get financing, but not a conventional loan, and I can guarantee you the loan that you are going to get is going to cost significantly more, because a lot of lenders don't want to touch this stuff. Because in a building, when you have too many short-term rentals, it can just make it so that it's too transient, people come and go, you never know if people are going to pay the maintenance dues or if the appropriate work is going to get done, because there's no stability. And then the big one here too, is there any significant deferred maintenance? That can easily kill a deal. And another one, is there a recreational land lease? You don't see this very often, but every once in a while you'll come across a situation where you have the building and the land that it sits on is not owned by the building. That's what a recreational land lease is. That can also kill a deal. And so I just wanted to share this with you guys, because anybody who is looking at buying a condo needs to understand these things. It's a little more complicated than buying a single family home. And there's a lot more things along the process that can essentially kill the deal when it comes to getting that loan. So it was nice that Fairway sent out this flyer. I know it's a little messed up at the bottom there and kind of hard to read, but at least they finally sent out something helpful for a change instead of trying to scare people into buying a house. So just make sure if you are going to buy a condo that you kind of check these boxes off yourself before getting even too deep into the deal, because number one, it will save you time, and you won't have to pay for an inspection and pay for an appraisal and all these things just to have the deal fall apart in the end anyways. So the more questions you ask like this that I just shared with you guys right from the get-go, maybe even before making an offer, the better you're going to do yourself in this purchase. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.